The Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, is reaffirming President Bola Tinubu's commitments to the growth of survival of Nigerian enterprises, because he has described them as a backbone of the economy. And then he goes further to say that the crucial role of local enterprises in ensuring Nigeria's economic sustainability cannot be overemphasized. And he's asserted that the strong support of small and medium-sized businesses is vital for long-term national development. If we look at the way the economy is run and what makes up the economy, a lot of persons are self-employed. Some of them have nano businesses, small, medium enterprises. Apart from government being the largest single employer of labor, the MSMEs actually take on a lot of Nigerians in terms of employment, and that's how many of Nigerians earn a living. But the conducive environment for these businesses to thrive is what we're talking about on the long term. The new tax bill has addressed some part of it, or will address some part of it when it becomes an act eventually, in the aspect of tax waivers for businesses that earn less than 250 million naira annually. So that's some comfort, or that would be some comfort for businesses. Beyond that, we also have critical issues like power and other infrastructure that needs to be on the ground or needs to be in place for businesses to function. What more can be done by the government to incentivize businesses?
Well, when I looked at that particular story, saw the name of the company, and I saw the myriad of activities and manufacturing activities it does. It carried it on the 20th year anniversary of the company, and the vice president had to come. First of all, what attracted the vice president or the presidency to tend to sing the praise of that organization? It must be owned by someone who has some form of a connection to, find its way to the governing authorities, to attract the presence of the president or the vice president to come, talk about this organization and the exploits it's doing in the manufacturing sector, and to give some of accolade and to use it as an example to promote local industries. It manufactures SIM cards for telecommunication companies. It manufactures smart cards for banks, VAV cards, including the ATM cards. So if it does that, that means it's also will be looking at areas that have to do with chips, because some of these cards are, use chips. And we can see the chips in the smart cards, ATM cards, and also on the SIM cards for telecommunication. That's good. It could be financially intensive, and the technology required to establish such an organization and to forge ahead and to remain in business and make progress to the extent that it has lived 20 years in this space is laudable and should be used. However, what the government should do is to find a way to get to organizations that are not even on the radar of the government, but they are doing excellently well. So when the government, remember vividly when the fuel subsidy was removed and Nigerians started crying out, and the government came out and said, okay, we are going to give some form of subvention to Nigerians, and it came out with how much? 8,000 naira thereabout. Nigerians cried. So what are we going to do with 8,000 naira after taking the 8,000 naira? Then what next? Then billions of naira were going to parliamentarians. That the government made a policy, or told Nigerians that we was going to embark on a policy reform whereby local industries, and it talked about 700 billion or 750 billion naira thereabout, for local industries, for local enterprises to be able to access funds and credit to upscale their businesses. And we are glad that the tax reform bill also has shown that aspect of the policy, where these businesses between 25 and 50 million naira returns will be exempted from paying taxes. That the government will need to do more. We will not wait to get organizations that politicians will refer to the government that organizations that are known because they belong to the political party of someone who belongs to government, and because of that they have access to government, so this fund gets to them. It needs to get to the ebb of society where we have some other organizations that knows nobody in government, but because they are doing well should be the reason why the government should lend a helping hand to them, so they can upscale their businesses to employ more of Nigerians.
Okay, so I get what you're saying. There should be no discriminatory support.
At all.
But Doc, for when it comes to the small businesses or even local businesses in Nigeria, there are policies that cut across board, and you find that this is open for as many businesses that are able to take advantage of it. Even when it comes to loans and grants, some businesses don't even know about it, or they do not have what it takes to be able to access it, like the records.
Well, I think beyond even looking at the records, it's also to look at what roles that governments will continue to play in ensuring that the ecosystem for MSMEs to prosper is created. We can talk about it from now till next year. What does SMEs require to survive? They need cheap loan facility. As long as the rate of borrowing is still on the rooftop, over 28%, and by the time you add management fee and the rest of it, is getting close to 34%. For companies to recover 34% as profit, it's huge. So you see that the small and medium scale enterprises are all struggling. And like Priya has alluded to, we're talking about companies that they have, their books are there. We're not even talking about nano businesses who are operating on the street. We're talking about people who are even operating in fintech with a structured office. They have accountants, they have auditors, they have external auditors that looks into their books. But everybody is struggling. The cost of energy is on the rooftop. The cost of electricity is on the rooftop. In short, I went to someone in Victoria Island the other day looking for accommodation. I'm asking, why is your all this expensive? And he said to me, my brother, electricity for us running this hotel is a medium-sized hotel, is 50 million in a month. That's massive. Now imagine that this guy is also on a loan. So companies are barely making profit. And I think that's what government needs to work on. Let's invest in good infrastructure, energy infrastructure. Let's invest in road infrastructure, because logistics is also massive. If you go elsewhere, where of course people are able to cope with energy costs, there are alternative means of transportation. I don't need to drive to work this morning. If you go to places like in the UK, people buy £12 ticket for 24 hours. Anywhere you want to go to. Or £5, I mean. £5 ticket. For a whole day, 24 hours. The ticket is valid. You use it, you can enter a train to go to wherever you are going. And these are all interconnected. So that reduces pressure for the workers and for also the company. But here, those facilities are not on the ground. And I think that is where really government intervention is required. We cannot continue to mount support.
And that's what the Vice President meant by saying paying lip service. So what else do we need to do? What else does government need to do? The CBN at the last MPC meeting left interest rate at 27.5%. And here we're talking about...
So how will a man, that's official, bank charges are not added, borrow money at 27.5% to do business in Nigeria and compete against a man in the US who is borrowing at 2%.
Okay. So you know what we're talking about, the interest rate being left. So the reasoning around it, as we looked at it on the table, is that because the rebasing had just been done, and then we cannot test for sure if that is the actual inflation rate. Let's leave it for a while. You know what I was talking about, having a review of that done maybe after a month or so, because businesses are struggling. Now, the longer we leave interest rates at the way it is, the longer businesses will pay high cost for fund, and the more we will go through this situation of high inflation rates, because they will want to pass on the cost, so they are able to pay back whatever loans they've secured.
One of the misfortune for the Nigerian business community is that whenever we have inflation, the only strategy that most times the government comes up with is take up the interest rate, so that we try to tighten up access to funds by these people, so that when we do that, we'll try to reduce the amount of money. No, not just that. When they make policies, when they think of policies, they want to bring in strategy on why this policy should be in existence and where should we start from. Most of the time, government goes ahead to start from the top. They don't go from beneath. They travel out of this country to other climes and they see the structured arrangement over there. There is no science there. Come here and implement it. So when you are in the UK and they are charging 2% to businesses for interest, you are in Canada or you are in any of the European Union countries, you see the way they do things. What do they do there? How does it work? How can we implement it here? I remember vividly when Lagos became a model for other states, when the Raji Fashola administration came and bring in the bus rapid transit system, the BRT, and he brought it. It served as a model for other states to copy. So when the government looks at these things, where is the objective? Okay, even though my objective is to make SMEs, nano businesses, and all the small businesses in Nigeria to be able to function well, to the extent that each of them will be able to employ 10 persons or 5 or 7 persons. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? Priority should be infrastructure. What am I supposed to do? There must be availability of power. And the availability of power, that's why I do not want government removing their hands completely from regulating power. That it becomes detrimental when the government itself will be the one aiding the organizations, these business persons, to hike tariff.
But there is NEC. Even if government removes its hand completely from the power sector, there is the regulatory body, which is NEC. It cannot remove its
hand completely, because we know NEC is there. NEC is supposed to be representing the interest of the government, and
that's
the interest of the government is supposed to be the interest of the people.
So it doesn't have to be a part of the power company or the power sector, like the DISCOs, which is privatized now, GENCOs and TCN. But the regulatory body remains, and so that will be government's way of regulating what happens within the sector.
Look at what the issue really is, because he's talking about when there's inflation, we tend to always increase rates. Why? Because that's book economists, textbook economists.
Yes.
And the unfortunate thing is that most of these textbooks were not written with third word in view.
And many of them have even been updated, so we need to even update the way we do things.
At what point are we going to begin to study our own economy and then make policies in line with the exigencies of the economy? And I think that is what tax faces us as a country.
So I think I would expect the CBN right now to begin to do their own research as to what is peculiar with the Nigerian economy, and then the strategy that the CBN would employ to control inflation should be peculiar to the Nigerian situation, else to just be you doing copy and paste, and that doesn't really produce the right results.